إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. قال الله عز وجل في القرآن المجيد: يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. صدق الله العظيم. أما بعد. We begin by praising Allah, the one and only true God. We praise Him, we seek His help, and we ask for His forgiveness for all the mistakes that we've made throughout the year and throughout our lives. As Muslims, we declare that nobody deserves to be worshipped besides Allah, the one and only true God. And we declare that Muhammad was the last and final messenger that was sent for our guidance and for the guidance of all humanity until the end of time. Respected brothers, sisters, and guests, there is an organization called the Pew Research Center. And what they do is they gather statistics about different phenomena taking place in the world. And in 2017, Pew issued some research based upon surveys that they had conducted in America. And they found that 80% of American Muslims actually observe the month of Ramadan. What that means is basically that Ramadan is a special month in Islam, it's a special month for Muslims, and 80%, according to the surveys, of the Muslims that live in America, they observe Ramadan in some capacity by fasting, by visiting the mosques, visiting the masjids, and doing other things that we do in the month of Ramadan. Now that's actually amazing. That was very heartwarming to see. 80% is a very high number. If you compare that with other religions, whether it be Christianity or Judaism or Hinduism or Buddhism or whatever else it may be, if you look at the length of a month for someone to actually commit to a religious, a religious festival or a religious rite of worship for a period of a month is a very serious thing, and you don't find that in many other religions. So that's the good news. That's an amazing thing, and we should thank Allah for that. Of course, we wish it was 100%, but 80% we'll take what we can get. But the sad news is, in the same survey and in the same study, they found that half that number, about 40%, actually pray their prayers 5 times a day. So they found that it was half. Now this is interesting, because when we try to understand why is it that more Muslims observe the month of Ramadan than those who actually pray on a regular basis, it's a question, right? It's something that demands an answer, or at least a potential answer. And one of the scholars in the community, he identified some causes, and these are some interesting causes he has. He's saying that one of the reasons why it's easier for people, or they're more inclined to observe the month of Ramadan and fast in the month of Ramadan, is because there's a greater community aspect to it. And that's what I think a lot of people would realize. The month of Ramadan is around the corner. It's starting in just a few days. And what ends up happening is, when you come to the mosque at nighttime, or when you go and visit someone's family, or you visit some of your friends, or you just see other Muslims, there's like this greater sense of community. Whereas prayer, sometimes it can be prayed on Friday, it can be prayed in the mosque, but most of the prayers will end up getting prayed at work or at home, and it becomes kind of an individual thing. And that's really interesting, because there's a greater social aspect to Ramadan which changes people. It makes them more encouraged, it makes them more motivated to do that. And in fact, what's more interesting is that there are non-Muslim minorities in some Muslim majority countries, populations, where they decide to fast with the Muslims because they feel kind of an outcast, like, we're the only ones who are not fasting, we're going to fast as well. There are Christians and Jews who fast, in Egypt with the Egyptian Muslim because everyone else around them is fasting. And that's really interesting. But what's more interesting is that this is something that is more specific to our time and age. And that is due to the phenomenon of loneliness. The healthcare company Cigna just released a study about a month ago, just this year. And they said that over 50% of Americans feel lonely. That's a lot. Over half of the entire population of this country admits to feeling lonely on a regular basis. That means that they don't have any real company, any real friends that they could just sit down and feel comfortable with. We had a seminar last week about kind of natural medicine and health and holistic healing and all of that. And one of the things that the doctor mentioned in that seminar, he said, if you have today, in this world today, if you have even one real friend that in the world that you feel comfortable around and you can actually share information and you feel good, you should be thankful. Because that's where we've gotten to. That's the point that we're at. And that's something that's very alarming. That's something that should be very distressing to a lot of people, not to stress you out, more. But this is something that we should be concerned about. And that's why Ramadan works so well. That's why people are so inclined towards that socializing aspect of it. But what I want to talk about today, really, is that that's a benefit of the month of Ramadan. We can say it's from the barakah or the blessings of Allah, because He helps people in that month. He kind of makes it more difficult for bad things to happen. The whispers that we get in our mind and in our hearts, they're reduced in the month of Ramadan. So from a spiritual angle, it's easier to be a good Muslim. It's easier to come to the mosque. It's easier to fast. It's easier to do a lot of things in the month because God is helping you with those things because He made that month special. But there's another aspect that we have to take into consideration. And that other aspect is that what was the purpose of the month supposed to be as defined by God? You see, some of the benefits of Ramadan we get is that we have this great community feeling, which is excellent. We should enjoy that. We should thank God for that. And then we benefit because sometimes we get some of the best food that's ever been cooked throughout the entire year. So that's a benefit. You can enjoy that. You can say Ramadan is cool and it's awesome because of that. And you get to see everyone, you get good food. And then other people say we learn to empathize with people who are poor and needy and don't have what we have. And that's a benefit too. When you go without food, you don't have water, and you start to really think, I wonder what all those people around the world and in America, what it's like for them to not have a meal and they're hungry and they cannot get some food. But that's not the actual underlying purpose of Ramadan. Those are benefits. But it's very important that as Muslims, and even people who are not Muslim, that they understand what's the actual purpose of Ramadan. And the reason why it's important is because, one, you should know what Ramadan is about, but two, I know a lot of people get asked by their friends, so why do you guys fast in Ramadan? What is Ramadan all about? And one of the typical answers that I hear people giving, so we feel like the poor and we understand what they're going through. But that can't be the actual answer. That's a benefit, but it's not the purpose. Because if that was the purpose, then the poor people wouldn't have to fast. But they're fasting too. So what benefit do they get? They already don't have much food. So there's another reason. And that reason is told to us in the Quran. So let's take a look at some of those verses. The first verse mentioned in Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God says, شَهْرُ رَمَضَانَ الَّذِي أُنزِلَ فِيهِ الْقُرْآنُ هُدًى لِلنَّاسِ. He says, the month of Ramadan, in which the Quran was revealed, is a guidance to all humanity. It's a guidance. So just look, if we read between the lines carefully, he's saying the month of Ramadan, which is the 9th month in the Islamic lunar calendar. We follow the Islamic lunar calendar when it comes to religious celebrations and religious observances. It's the 9th month. We're in the 8th month right now. Ramadan's starting in a few days. And what's going to happen is that in that 9th month, Allah says that month is the month in which the Quran was actually revealed. So you see the answer partly being given right there. What makes Ramadan special? It's not the food. It's not even the fasting. It's not the socializing. It's not feeling like the poor. It's actually because it's observing or celebrating the fact that the Quran was revealed. And you say, well, what's so special about the Quran? And it gives it to you, it gives you the answer right in the next part. It says, Hudal linnas. It's a book of guidance for all humanity. What is a guidebook? You know, we have a lot of challenges in our lives. We have a lot of questions in our lives. And we're looking for answers. And what we need is something that can guide us to make us understand what is the purpose of life. Why were we created? Why do we even exist as opposed to non-existing? Did we just happen to randomly form and we figure out we just do whatever we feel like? Or is there some predefined purpose of why we exist in the first place? That is what the Quran is giving to people. And it's something that they absolutely need in their life. So it says it's a book of guidance. And then it says, وَبَيِّنَاتٍ مِّنَ الْهُدَى. And it says, and there are clear signs of guidance in it. Meaning that if you want to know if it's true or not true, when you read it and you look through it, you're like, oh, that just makes sense. That's what a lot of people say. They say, you know, when they study Islam, when they look at the Quran, it just makes sense. They always had questions about things. They never understood aspects of life, and it just makes sense to them. And there are clear signs for them to reflect. And then he says, wal furqan. It is a criterion. What is a criterion? A criterion is basically a criteria which helps you differentiate between what is good and bad. Or what people used to say, what is good and evil. Right? What is good, what is bad in your life? What is good, what is bad in society? What is good and what is bad for family? These are questions that people are talking about all the time. The elections are coming up here in the state of California. How do we vote? What do we decide is best for our society, or best for our community as a whole? What is best for our individual families? What is best for individual people? These are all things that people need a criteria on how to decide between what is good, what is bad, what is right, what is wrong. And that criteria is best offered by God, the one who created us in the first place. So that is what Ramadan is actually about. That's what the Quran is about. And Ramadan is reminding us that we need to celebrate that. We need to realize how important it is to have a guidebook and a criteria to figure out how to live in this life. Otherwise, we're going to be on a path of self-destruction, both in this life and in the next life. And if you look at all the issues that we're dealing with today in society, especially young people, when they're, you know, the morals are changing. We live in an age of moral relativism, where things get redefined all the time. 30 years ago, this was considered normal behavior or abnormal behavior, and now it's considered normal, or vice versa. So people are confused about the concept of evil. What does it mean that, you know, God allows bad things to happen? People are confused about the concept of justice. And what is, you know, how is God going to judge us? And is there justice involved in that? People are confused about the concept of gender. And what does it mean to be either male, female, or have different genders, you know, existing within society? People are confused about what should be the position of a society on mind-altering drugs. Should it be something that we just kind of have a nice natural escape, you know, it helps us concentrate in our prayers or whatever other excuses get made? Or do we take a different stance on it? What's best for our society? What's best for our family? What's best for our own minds and hearts? That's where we need the Quran to help us understand where we're going to go. And then afterwards, right after that introduction, Allah says, فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمُ الشَّهْرَ فَلْيَصُمْ. So because of all of that, because the fact that Ramadan is the month in which the Quran was revealed, the Quran is a guidebook for your life. There's clear signs to show you that it's good for you and that it's the truth. And it's a criteria that you need to differentiate between good and bad, right and wrong. Because of that reason, if you come to the month of Ramadan, you need to fast. Think about that. See the connection between all of that. You need to fast. And once we get to fasting, then the question becomes, what's fasting? What's going on? What's the connection between celebrating or commemorating the revelation of the Quran, looking at its purpose and why it exists, and fasting? Well, we look at another verse of the Quran around this area. It's actually a few verses up in the same surah, in Surah Al-Baqarah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O you who believe. Speaking to the Muslims, those who actually believe in this book, He says, Kutiba alaykum as-siyamu kama kutiba ala alladhina min qablikum. Fasting has been prescribed for you. Prescribed like a prescription. You know, when you go to a doctor and you need something and something wrong with you, they write you a prescription, say, here, you follow this, it's going to help you. All right, what is it going to do for you? Well, the doctor already told you. If you do this, then this is what's going to happen. So there's a prescription. It says, fasting has been prescribed for you the way it was prescribed for people before you. Meaning there's other communities before the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, that they also fasted in the past. So you're not the first ones who've ever fasted. And then what does he say? لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. So that perhaps you might acquire taqwa. Meaning you might become conscious. You might become mindful of God in your life. And that's the purpose of fasting. It's not just feeling this way or doing this. These are all other benefits. It's not just about losing weight. You know, hopefully you do get a little bit more in shape. It's good for your body. There's a lot of research and all of that. Make sure you stay hydrated because it's the summer. You know, make sure you drink enough water when you break your fast. Don't overdo the tea and the coffee because it's a diuretic. It's going to, you know, dehydrate you. Don't overdo the soda. Just want to throw all of that in there so you're clear. Make sure you keep yourself hydrated. But at the same time, it's not just about not eating food. The ultimate goal behind fasting is so that you can actually acquire taqwa. And the taqwa means being mindful or being conscious, or some people say being fearful, being on guard of Allah and the rules and the commands and the guidance that God has given you. And if you think about that, what is mindfulness? Right? What does it mean to be mindful? It actually means, the definition of being mindful is that there's a state of active attention on the present circumstance. That's what it means to be mindful in your life. There's a lot of talk today about, you know, try to be more mindful. Because we're addicted to our cell phones and a message comes, you're talking to someone, very important conversation, and you just can't stop but help to look. If you've got a smartwatch, it interrupts you, right? Or you got a thing, you'll take out your phone and you start checking a message. You're in the middle of an extremely important conversation. Maybe you're in the middle of a business deal. You're in the middle of a family meeting. You see, maybe you are talking to your child and they're about to get up and walk for the first time in their life, and it's such a big moment for you. And you get this distraction, you know, on demand, this message comes in, oh, someone forwarded me a WhatsApp video, which is about some, you know, nothing. It's completely useless, but it distracted you away. Being mindful means that you're actually present, you're there in the present state. And being mindful of Allah, being mindful of God, means that you're remembering all the time who you are and where you came from and who created you, and the fact that Allah is observing and He's watching and He's making sure everything is being recorded that you do. So you be on your best behavior. Just like if you know that someone else is watching you, if you know that Facebook or Google or Apple, they're all tracking every single thing that you do. And this just came out now, right? Google is tracking everywhere. If you have a Google phone, everywhere you go, everywhere you drive, even if your phone is on airplane mode, in fact, even if your phone is disconnected from a service, it's actually tracking everything you do. As soon as you turn it back on, it'll send all the data of every location you've been to Google. This is not an anti-Google khutbah, okay? Just so you know, it's a nice company, but they, you know, need to be a little careful. But when you know that, now it's like scary, right? They're watching everything I do, even when I'm on airplane mode, even when my SIM card is taken out of my phone. Yeah, your phone just checks the location, you know, via the GPS that's built in, and then as soon as you put it back in, it sends them all the data. When you know that, you're like, whoa, gotta be a little bit more careful. I don't know, you know, maybe I shouldn't have been in this place at that time, or I didn't want them to know it. The same thing. When you become mindful of God, when you fast in the month of Ramadan, the end goal is so that you become more mindful of God, and you're going to be on guard. You're going to be careful. You're going to think, you know what? Before I utter this word that I shouldn't be uttering just to get the attention of people because it's an exaggerated word, is this something that God likes? Is this something that Allah is going to be happy, or am I going to be responsible for this? So you bite your tongue, not physically, right? Not literally. You stop yourself because you know that you're going to be responsible for this. And that's the purpose behind fasting. And we'll talk more in the coming weeks about some of the ways we can change. But why does fasting work? Why and how does it help you to build the consciousness or the mindfulness of God? Is because you're giving up water, you're giving up food, you're giving up intimacy, you're giving up the strongest things that your body craves and desires. And you start to build that natural level of discipline and self-control. And if you can do that, then you can stay away from using some, foul language. You can stay away from backbiting other people because you remind yourself, you know what? I gave up water in Ramadan in the summer. I gave up water. I can refrain from saying this one word that I shouldn't be uttering. I can refrain from gossiping about someone else. I can refrain from going to such and such website because I gave up water, and that was more difficult than what I'm about to do. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us reach the month of Ramadan and help us to benefit from the month of Ramadan. Ameen. Astaghfirullah li wa lakum wa li sa'iril muslimin fastaghfiruhu innahu huwal ghafurur rahim. Alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ba'd. So just to recap what we talked about, the month of Ramadan has many benefits. And among the benefits are that we get to socialize with people, we get good food, we learn empathy about, how people have much less than us, and we appreciate the blessings that we have. But with all of that, the ultimate purpose behind Ramadan is to commemorate the Quran. And the Quran is special because it's a guidebook for our life that we actually need in our life. And the way in which we commemorate that guidebook that's been given to us is by fasting. And the purpose of fasting is to ultimately acquire mindfulness and consciousness of God, to become better people and to become better Muslims. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us and guide us at all times. We ask Allah to accept our fasting and our prayers that we're going to be performing. We ask Allah to make this the best Ramadan we've ever encountered. We ask Allah to help all those people who have a misunderstanding of Islam to open their hearts and minds and see through the propaganda and understand the true message of Islam. We ask Allah to make us live as Muslims in our life and only take away our lives when we're ready to die in a state of true faith. Ameen. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala al-mursaleen walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Just a few quick announcements. First of all, we would like to thank Dr. Janet and Cal State Fullerton for joining us today to learn more about Islam. So you're always welcome, and we love having schools visit us, especially our neighbors from just down the street, Cal State Fullerton. We also have a program tonight at 8 p.m. It's called Ramadan Reaffirming Our Commitment to the Quran. It's going to be with Sheikh Muhammad Faqih at 8 p.m. We also have a very important program on Sunday in our other building down the street near Cal State Fullerton. It's called the IIOC Extension. That program is basically everything you need to know about fasting, Ramadan, and Zakah. And myself and Sheikh Muhammad, we're both going to be presenting that program. It's at 1:30. So all those questions that you're ever going to ask about, does this break your fast? Can I take vaccines? Can I go to the dentist while I'm fasting? How do I pay my zakah? What do I do on my retirement 401k IRA accounts? All of those questions are going to be answered Sunday, 1:30, in the building down the street. We also have these cool looking Ramadan gift boxes to give to your neighbors, your friends, other people, to teach them about Ramadan, and it's really beautiful. We've assembled it for you, so we're selling them outside right there. If you can assemble your own, awesome. If not, you don't have time, we assembled them for you. You can buy them, give it to your friends and your co-workers. Also, we would like to welcome the political candidates who would like to meet the Muslim public. Some of them will be outside near the table, outside with a table near the gate, so you can go ahead and meet them, and you can introduce yourself to them outside. Okay, welcome as-salam.
Allahu Akbar.